Welcome to GDs, and this is Sanditon, Season 1. Season starts with a coach having Tom and Mary Parker meeting an accident. Charlotte Heywood, along with her siblings, help them out, and they take them to their home. We learn that Tom Parker is trying to bring life to the seaside town of Sanditon, and for the same, he is searching for a doctor. He offers the Heywoods to visit Sanditon so that they can see its charms, and he can thank them for their hospitality. Mr. Heywood was not keen on leaving his house, but her daughter, Charlotte Heywood, wanting to have an adventure, is allowed by her parents to go with the Parkers. On their way, Tom shows Charlotte the house of Lady Denham, the richest lady in Sanditon, and the key investor for his projects in the town. Lady Denham is not happy with Tom, as her investment in the houses has not materialized, since most of them are empty. Tom assures her that she need not worry, as in the upcoming ball, his brother will be bringing in a few of his wealthy friends from London, and he assures her that they will spread the word about Sanditon, and it will give them a lot of promotion. We also learn that Lady Denham has no children of hers. Thus, her relatives are eager for her to pass away, so that they can inherit her wealth. One of them being Clara Brereton, who is living with her, and is in her care. While the other two are step-siblings, Esther and Edward Denham, who have a direct claim to her inheritance. Lady Denham, seeing Charlotte talking with Edward, warns her that he is a charmer, but ultimately he will have to marry for money. Charlotte assures Lady Denham that she is not here, looking for a groom. We also get to see Arthur and Diana Parker, younger siblings of Tom Parker, and we learn that they are not that adventurous. Later, we see Charlotte enjoying one of the best attractions of Sanditon, a sea bath. We also get to see Esther and Edward Denham's state, which is not well kept, and they are drowning in bills. In addition, there seems to be a kind of romantic bond between them. Esther is worried that Clara, the niece of Lady Denham, living with her, might get Lady Denham to leave all her inheritance with her, but Edward assures her that she need not worry about that. Charlotte spots Edward and Clara being close to each other. She later gets to meet with Sidney Parker, brother of Tom, who has come to Sanditon for the ball. At the ball, we see Sidney's rich friends, Lord Babington, and Mr. Crow. We also get to see a very rich young lady, Georgiana Lamb. And we learn that she inherited a lot of wealth from her father, and Sidney Parker was given the responsibility of being her guardian by her father, till she is 21 years old. At the ball, Clara tells Charlotte that when she saw her with Edward, it was Edward who was forcing herself on her. While Edward tells her that he was only trying to comfort a distressed Miss Clara. Sidney asks Charlotte what she thinks of the town and the people, but as Charlotte shares her unfiltered opinions, Sidney dismisses and belittles her. Later, Esther asks Edward if he was able to seduce and disgrace Clara. It is when he tells her that she saw him coming, and before he could do anything, she took him in her hand and quite undid him. This makes Esther realize that Clara is indeed a serious threat to their inheritance. We also see Esther being visited by Lord Babington, as he has grown fond of her after the ball, but she is cold towards him. While Charlotte helps out Tom with organizing his work, and is amazed to see his plans for the town. She also goes with him to see the construction being carried out, and gives her inputs for the same. Both Mr. Tom and Mr. James Stringer, his lead construction worker, were amazed by her knowledge of architecture. As they were returning, she bumps into Sidney. She tries to apologize to him for her words, but he gives her a cold shoulder. While Lady Denham invites all of them for a luncheon in honor of Georgiana Lamb. But in reality, Lady Denham, knowing about the wealth of Miss Lamb, wants Edward to charm her. But at the luncheon, Edward was not able to do so. Lady Denham, seeing this, directly asks her if she finds Edward to be her possible suitor, but Miss Lamb denies it. She is also supported in her views by Charlotte. The party ends as Arthur tries to cut open the pineapple, and they found that it was spoiled and infested by worms. Lady Denham was quite angry with how things went at the luncheon. And she threatened Tom that she might indeed pull all her funds from the town. On the other hand, Miss Lamb tries to leave Sanditon, but having no money on her, she was not able to do so. As Charlotte sees her standing on a cliff, she pulls her back, and as they return, they become good friends. While Tom tries to convince his brother to ask his friends to stay for a few more days, Sidney lets him know that he cannot force them to stay. But before they leave, Lord Babington tries his luck again with Esther, and he tells her that he will write to her, hoping that she changes her mind. Tom knowing he needs to do something to pull in more crowd in the town, is able to acquire the services of a doctor. The doctor gets ready to show his innovative ideas at Lady Denham. As he prepares, Edward gets Clara away from Lady Denham, while Esther uses this time to convince her that she has been supportive of Clara for far too long, and now, perhaps it's time for her to leave. Lady Denham, realizing the same, tells Clara that she might have overstayed her welcome. The doctor, in order to show his greatest invention, a hot running bath, asks for a volunteer. Clara decides to test it out. She enjoys it at first, but in order to gain sympathy, she burns her hand deliberately. Lady Denham dismisses Tom and the doctor and asks them to leave. Esther is sure that Clara did this deliberately, but Edward is not sure. As she goes back to see her, she learns that Lady Denham has allowed her to stay there for now. Esther confronts her when she was alone, and Clara lets her know that she has endured a lot more. While Charlotte, seeing the construction in the town, interacts with James Stringer. We also see Stringer's father, working on the project. But he meets an unfortunate accident. Charlotte, with her presence of mind, was able to stop the bleeding, and they get him to the Parkers' house, and call for the doctor. Charlotte, along with Sydney and the doctor, are able to help him out and they save his leg. Stringer was quite grateful to them, but is also upset with Tom, as despite asking him for more men and equipment, he has been reluctant in providing them. Sydney, seeing Charlotte being strong and confident in the stressful situation, was quite impressed with her. Tom, seeing how a doctor on standby was so helpful, puts his foot down, and is able to convince Lady Denham for allowing the doctor to stay for now. But at the same time, he is quite stressed, as he sees no way of promoting the town as of now. As Charlotte joins Sydney at the river, playing with Parker's children, she gets an idea. She shares the same with Tom, telling him that the town needs an event to pull in the crowds. Tom is also excited about the idea, and they tell Mary that they will be organizing a regatta. Sydney, knowing Tom to have a plan for now, decides to head back to London for a few days. Tom asks him to inquire from the banks if they can lend him some more money. While Sydney, knowing of the friendship between Georgiana and Charlotte, asks her to keep an eye on her friend. Charlotte, spending time with Sydney, also started to change her mind about him. She also goes to check on Mr. Stringer's father. There, she learns that Mr. Stringer, apart from being a stonemason, is also good at designing. Charlotte appreciates him, although his father is dismissive of his talent. Charlotte is called by Georgiana, as she wants to get out of her room, but her governess Mrs. Griffiths is against her leaving the house. It is when Georgiana tells her that the Parker family will be joining them for a picnic, and Charlotte goes along with her lies. And they are finally able to leave the house together. But in reality, Georgiana wanted to get out in order to meet her lover, Otis Molyneux. Charlotte is surprised by the same, and she learns that they are forbidden from seeing each other by Sydney. Charlotte decides to let them spend time together, but was not willing to let Georgiana go out of her sight. Being with them, she learns that Otis is working with a group advocating for the end of slavery. Charlotte was quite surprised on learning that slavery is still prevalent. She also learns from Georgiana that Sydney accumulated his wealth because of slavery only. Otis asks Georgiana to marry him, but she lets him know that she cannot do so without Sydney's permission. Charlotte was quite puzzled on why Sydney was opposed to their relationship, and Georgiana reveals to her that it is because of his color. As they decide to return back, we find that Sydney had also returned, and he has been looking for them. On finding them together, he warns Otis and tells him not to return, while he asks Mrs. Griffiths to take Georgiana back to her room. He is also quite angry with Charlotte, and they get into an argument, and Charlotte blames him for a lot of things. She later takes a walk with Stringer in order to clear her mind. Stringer, spending time with her, grows fond of her. He later tells Tom that they need more men and equipment in order to increase the work speed, and Tom assures him of getting the same. Tom also learns from Sydney that he won't be able to get any more loans from the banks for now. Seeing Tom worried, his wife wants him to share what is going on, but he tells her that everything is fine. On the other hand, Lady Denham wants Esther and Edward to get married in money, and thus, she is preparing a list of suitable partners for them. She asks Clara to give them a letter. As Clara goes to their house, she sees them quite close to each other, and leaves before being spotted. The letter summoned them to Lady Denham, and as they visit her, she tells them that in order to attain wealth, they need to marry in wealth, as they won't get any inheritance from her. She gives Edward a list of proper suitors for him. And on learning that Lord Babington has been writing to Esther, she wants her to respond back to him. Esther, being teased by Clara about being close to Edward, gets away from there. Clara confronts her, and on finding out that she is in love with Edward, she warns her that she has seen men like Edward, and he is only taking advantage of her, and she needs to get away from him. Esther wants to run away with Edward, but he refuses to do so, stating that they don't have any wealth. And if they won't inherit Lady Denham's wealth, they might have to get married in money. On the other hand, Tom, not being able to procure funds, has not been able to pay his men. Stringer lets him know that if he doesn't pay his men, they might not play in the upcoming cricket match between them and the workers. Tom assures him of paying them every penny in a fortnight, and asks Stringer to assure that his men come to play the game. While Charlotte, in defiance of Sydney, helps Georgiana and Otis to write to each other, as she acts as their courier. And seeing Georgiana's desire to meet with Otis, she proposes a plan that they can meet during the cricket match, as everyone else will be busy with the match. Lady Denham also tells Esther that she has been writing on her behalf to Lord Babington, and she wants her to woo him during his visit for the cricket match. As the match starts, we see Lord Babington talking with Esther, and is able to convince her to give him some time after the match. While during the match, as tension flared up, one of the men accused Tom of not being paid his wages for weeks, in front of everyone. Tom, feeling humiliated, walks away from the game, and in order to keep their team alive, Charlotte decided to take his place in bat. While Clara tries to seduce Edward, telling him that with Esther gone, it will be only them who will be fighting for the inheritance. Tom is also confronted by Mrs. Parker, and she tells him that he need not lie to him anymore, and he should tell her everything moving forward, and instead of buying her gifts, he should first pay his men. And Tom decides to leave for London in order to raise funds. Meanwhile, with Charlotte busy in the game, Georgiana goes alone to meet with Otis. The game finishes with the Parkers team winning the match. It is then they realize that Georgiana is missing. Not being able to find her, everyone is worried. They learn that a man saw Georgiana being forcefully put into a carriage. Knowing this, Charlotte comes clean with Sydney, telling him everything, and how she planned to be with her, but she forgot because of the game. Sydney is quite angry with her, and he leaves for London in order to find Georgiana. Charlotte, feeling responsible, also decided to go to London in order to find her, despite being asked by Mrs. Parker not to go. On the other hand, we see Lord Babington spending time with Esther, and he proposes to her. As Esther returns home, and Edward learns about Lord Babington's proposal, he is able to charm her again. As a result, Esther declines Lord Babington's offer, and she tells Lady Denham the same, but before she could leave, we see Lady Denham falling ill. In London, Charlotte is able to find the place where she used to send letters to Otis. But she learns that Otis doesn't stay there, but only collected letters from there. As she searches further, she is cornered by a man. But she is saved by Sydney, who was surprised to see her there. As they spend time together, Charlotte learns that he despises slavery, and that's why he decided to return back, and he wasn't against Otis because of his color, but because he is not a good match for Georgiana. Charlotte tells Sydney about another place where they might find him, and they are able to track Otis there. But he is not aware of any letter asking him to meet Georgiana. He reveals to them that he owes someone a gambling debt, and as they confront him, he tells them that Otis boasted of money and marriage, and once he was not able to pay, they took matters into their own hand, and now, they have given away Georgiana to someone else, in order to settle his debt. Charlotte and Sydney, following the trail, are able to learn that Georgiana was sold in a forced marriage. But they are able to track her down, and they save her. Charlotte and Sydney, in their endeavor to save Georgiana, started liking each other. With Tom being in London, Charlotte also learns from him that Sydney's heart was once broken by a lady with whom he was engaged. But she broke off her engagement with him in order to marry an older and a richer man. And after the breakup, Sydney left the country, and when he returned, he was not the same man. Sydney, in order to give Georgiana a proper closure for her relation, allowed Otis and her to say their final goodbyes. While Charlotte also learns from Otis that Sydney cleared all his gambling debts. Sydney, learning about Tom's hardship, also decides to lend him £3,000. In addition, they are able to secure an invitation to a party of elites in London, and there they can promote the event of the regatta that they are planning in Sanditon. At the event, we see Charlotte being overwhelmed by everything, and she decides to hide in a corner. she finds a friend in Susan there, and as they get talking, Charlotte shares her ordeals with her. Susan, seeing her talk about Sydney, tells her that she is in love with him. And before she could comprehend that, we see Sydney asking her for a dance. And the love they have for each other is visible in their eyes. Later, Charlotte sees Sydney talking with a lady, and Tom informs her that she is the one who broke his heart, but now she is widowed. While back in Sanditon, Edward, seeing Lady Denham on her deathbed, decided to search for her will. But he was not able to find the same. He tells Esther to return home as he has not finished searching. As Esther returns home, Clara shows him the will, and we learn that Lady Denham has donated her entire estate for the development of Sanditon. Knowing this, they both know that till there is a will, they won't get anything. But if they burn the will, Edward will inherit her estate by default. Clara agrees to do so, but in return, she wants him to assure her that they will split the inheritance. Edward, knowing this to be his only option, agrees to it. And after burning the will, they also make out. As Edward returns back, he tells Esther that there was no will, and now they will have everything, and he also assures her that Clara will be gone. Tom and the others, on returning back, go to see Lady Denham. The doctor informs them that it will be very unlikely that the lady survives the night. Tom, on his way back with Mary, lets her know that if Lady Denham passes away, and they don't get her financial support, then they are doomed. While Clara, feeling belittled by Esther, tells her on how his brother conspired with her, and they burned the will, and decided to share the inheritance. In addition, they also got intimate with each other. Knowing how his brother betrayed her, she is quite broken, and she tells a dying Lady Denham everything. Meanwhile, people have started showing up in town for the regatta, and the event is even more successful, as Lady Worcester also showed up, and we find that Lady Worcester, an affluent London lady, is indeed Susan, and she came there in order to catch up with her friend Charlotte. Charlotte is quite surprised, getting to know that she is a very influential lady in London. Charlotte shares her feeling for Sydney with Mr. Stringer, and knowing this, he decided to hide his feelings from her. While Sydney spends time with Charlotte as he teaches her to row. His ex has also come to Sanditon for the event. As they interact with each other, Sydney's ex taunts Charlotte, and she gets quite upset with Sydney for allowing it to happen. While Arthur is able to get Georgiana out of her bed, so that she could also enjoy the festivities of the regatta. In the main event of regatta, we see a boat race, which is finally won by Stringer and his men, with the Parker's family being in a close second position. On the other hand, we see Lady Denham pulling through and back on the road to recovery. And she remembered everything that Esther told her. She throws both Clara and Edward out of her house, telling them never to return back. Edward, angry about the ordeal, rants about her sister. Lord Babington, hearing him rant, knows that things are not right with Esther. And he goes to her to give her his support. He lets her know that he knows how his brother manipulated her, but he is there to support her now. And we see them spending some quality time together. With a successful event, and Lady Denham being healthy again, things are looking promising for Sanditon. Tom is particularly happy, as for the upcoming summer ball, people have started coming to the town. Charlotte, knowing that Sydney never went back to London with her ex, was quite happy, and as they spend more time together, they confess their love for each other, and finally kiss. We also see Stringer being accepted for a paid architecture course, but his father is not pleased with the same, and as he got ready to go to the ball, he has an argument with his father. While Charlotte, before going to the ball, asks Mary Parker how she knew Tom was right for her. She tells her that you just know, and she was quite happy for her, knowing that she and Sydney are in love. At the ball, we see Arthur and Georgiana dancing together, while Esther dances with Lord Babington, who later proposes to her again, and this time she agrees. Later we see Charlotte and Sydney spending time together, and as Sydney was about to propose to her, a drunk Edward interrupts the ball, and Lady Denham asks the Parkers to escort him out. While Arthur, being tired, decided to return back, and on his way back, they see the newly built buildings burning. They try to stop the fire from spreading and call for help, but by the time the fire could be stopped, it burnt down everything, and Stringer lost his father in the fire. Tom is also broken, as because of the financial crises, he never got the project insured, and now they owe a lot. Arthur offers his inheritance, but Tom lets them know that even their entire inheritance together will only be a drop in the ocean. Lady Denham rips into Tom for the losses, but Sydney assures them not to worry, as he will find a way. Sydney leaves for London in order to secure funds, and when he returns, he had the funds required to build Sanditon back. But in order to get the funds, we learn that he had to get back with his ex Eliza, and has agreed to marry her. We also get to see Lord Babington and Esther being married, and Eliza gloating to Charlotte about the planning of her London wedding. Charlotte, having a broken heart, decides to leave Sanditon. As she says her goodbye to Mr. Stringer, we learn that he decided to stay back and rebuild the town in the memory of his father. While the Parker family is quite sad seeing her leave. Arthur and Diana Parker also decided to leave Sanditon. As the season ends, we see Sydney stopping Charlotte and telling her that he does not love Eliza. Charlotte lets him know that now, as he has decided to marry her, he should honor that, and she assures her that she doesn't think badly of him. And they say their final goodbye as Charlotte continues her journey back home. Thanks for watching. And if you liked it, please subscribe.